Sure. Every day, dollar just they get it higher power over naira. Still them talk say make we off mind, but thank God say my ego don't come. So my people make you lie down, yo yo. My ego don't come, oh yo yo. My people make we shout, oh yo yo. My ego don't come, oh yo yo. My ego don't come, man of the masses, oh yo yo. My ego don't come, oh yo yo. My ego diary politico, oh yo yo. My ego don't come, oh yo yo. This one not day off in mind, oh yo yo. My ego don't come, oh yo yo. Person where they do evil, no one make person talk. Them say that Mayegun, that man too they talk. He too they talk. Say Mayegun diary, he they hot like pepper. But every day then they take money in bulk. Woman picking, they the street they hawk. Still them talk say make we no talk. But thank God say Mayegun don't come. So my people make you laugh, oh yo yo. Mayegun don't come, oh yo yo. My people make you shout, oh yo yo. Mayegun don't.
Mu shiga mota ko da kafa mu kai su walwashin dan mana, mu je garin lantan mu bi garin lantan din mana. Me ake tsoro ne, me muke fargaba ne a duniya ne, ba mutuwa ba ce. Malaman mu wallahi dole su dubi akan wannan al'amari. Kwamiti da ake ba zai mana maganin abin ba, a kawo taimako an ba wa 'yan gudun hijira miliyan 5-10 wannan kaskanci ne. Mu haɗu a garin mana, a shiga mota inda kafa ne daga nan zuwa lantan wallahi za mu je da kafa. Menene abin da muke yi ne? In ba za su yi ba malaman da ke karantar da mu ba ma so mu ketare iyakar su ne. Muna respecting din su ne, muna jiran su ne. In ba su da lokaci wallahi tallahi na amince zan zama komanda. Wallahi tallahi a ba da iko. Wallahi zan jagoranci tafiyar. Wallahi zan jagoranta a gayyata. Wallahi mu mai da kowa gidansa. Duk musulmin da ke Yamini, duk musulmin da ke Yalwan Shandam, duk musulmin da ke Garkawa, na yi alkawarin zan wuce gaba. Kowa ya koma gidansa ya shiga. Kowa ya koma gidansa ya shiga. Wallahi na yi alkawarin zan wuce gaba. Na yi alkawarin a kashe ni akan addinin Allah, na amince. Na amince a nan ma a kashe ni akan addinin Allah, na amince. Na amince. Me muke yi ne a rayuwa? Wannan kaskanci da muke cikin me za mu je mu ga Allah gobe kiyama a kayansa. Mutane ana ta koro su muna ajiye su. Sahabbai ba haka suka rayu ba. Malaman sunna ku ne malamanmu, ku ne iyayenmu, ku ne jagororinmu. Ba ma so mu ketare iyakar ku, ba ma so mu ketare abin da kuke gaya mana. Kaskancin da muke rayuwa ya ishe mu a rayuwa, ya ishe mu a cikin rayuwar da muke. Ba a mana magana ba aka rusa masallaci a Numan, musulmai suna kuka makiyin Allah ya ce a rusa, babu wanda ya magana. Mutane sun zo sallar juma'a ana sa wani masallaci gire da a kasar da a garin Numan. Me za mu je mu gaya wa Allah? A sallah kadai Allah yake bukatan mu da shi, azumi kadai Allah yake bukatan mu da shi, azumi kadai Allah yake bukata mu ya wata Ramadan.
Hello there.
Ayekun làwa mọ̀, àmọ̀ tó dòdòdò. Ayekun ti dé o, ọ̀rẹ́ ara yìí.
Good morning to you, good afternoon to you, and good evening to you from wherever you are watching from. This is Mayegun Live.
Àṣírí ọ̀jẹ̀lú kì í bò níbẹ̀ o. Bó bá ṣe eré, àní Mayegun máa wí. Ó sì tún ṣe eré.
Thank you so much for joining me. Please read the caption of this broadcast. Read the description as well. Share the broadcast. Invite your friends and invite your not so friendly friends. Tell them, Mayegun today. Tonight, this broadcast is This is a broadcast that is going to take you down memory lane, history of what has become today's Nigeria and the clash of civilization as we are currently experiencing it. This broadcast is not meant for you to hate on anyone or any group or any religion. If you pay attention as we get into it.
Lórí YouTube, àní ẹ̀sùn láti. Wọ́n bàbá gbé wúrẹ́, àní ẹ̀sùn láti.
Wahala is brewing again.
Ládìyẹ, àní ẹ̀sùn láti.
Know thy history.
Lárúfin o.
Never become a prisoner of your own history.
Ìnákówó jẹ, àní ẹ̀sùn láti.
Share the broadcast.
Àti gbàrìbá, àní ẹ̀sùn láti. Aṣòfin tí ń rúfin o. Àní ẹ̀sùn láti. Òpùrọ́ olóṣèlú. Àní ẹ̀sùn láti. Ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràgì. Àní ẹ̀sùn ràgì. Máyégún ti gbé.
Mo ti dé. So good morning to you, good afternoon to you, and good evening to you from wherever you are watching from. Again, this is Mayegun live. A lot of you who have sort of been following the latest developments, especially the roundabout turn that the terrorism act of the Fulani terrorists in Plateau State and across the Middlebelt part of Nigeria in the last 24 hours, they have been trying and trying to gaslight the victims. In fact, there are those who are beginning to kind of remind us that, yeah, this is happening, but it's not just the Christians that are being killed. Muslims are being killed too. It is not the first time that this kind of a gaslighting is going to be played. Others are sort of resorting into a sort of, a defensive mode, because to them, talking about this is like singling out a particular group of people, or is such an coordinated attack on Islam. You see this broadcast this evening, I am going to call white, and I'm going to call black. But just for the sake of those who really want to be, who are interested in this with an open mind, those who are not here to defend either of the group that I'm going to mention in this broadcast tonight. In Nigeria, history was completely removed from our curriculum. Where the history were left, they were completely manipulated and totally misleading, and for a purpose that a lot of us didn't know until we grew up to find out what is wrong with Nigeria. A lot of us came to conclusion that, yes, as it is currently being kind of postulated, obviously, we were not meant to be together as a country. And why? It is simply because culturally, traditionally, and so many other ways, We are totally incompatible. But we all know why we were forced together to be made a country. In Nigeria, everything is into two. You have the North, you have the South. You have the Constitution for the South. You have the Sharia for the North. Everything there is like into 2-2-2. However, down south, when you talk about Islam, you'll be talking about those Muslims that consider themselves as moderate Muslims. Those are the ones that will never even kind of mute the idea of killing anybody because of their religion. That is the down south. Up north, deep north, Sharia north, they can kill you because of Islam. And to us in the south, we call it terrorism. And that is why, if you are watching me tonight, please keep this in mind, okay? That when I am speaking about these extremists and their history, that they are telling you to tolerate. If you want to have a country governed by law, you will not tolerate anybody. Do you understand? You are going to accept everyone for who they are. It is by accepting them for who they are and respecting them for who they are, that is when you can now talk about being one country. That is not Nigeria. We all have our history. Let me be honest with you. Our histories, they were written in blood, sweat of their fellow brothers and sisters. We used to have kingdoms, ladies and gentlemen. You have the Oyo Empire that stretched to what is now today Benin Republic, partly Togo, Oyo Empire. You had the Hausa Empire. You have the Benin Kingdom. You have, all this existed centuries ago. And everyone who survived those centuries and their own race, they are considered the indigenous people who end where they are. Our history, many of them today are being read to us just to remember who we were, and then not anything extra. But in Nigeria history, there is a particular one that they hid away from all of us, and they told us it is actually our history when it is not. Until 1400, 15th century, there was no single Fulani, living or dead, that existed in any part of what is today's Nigeria. And not until 1754, when a young Fulani man called Uthman Danfodio rose, and he became a teacher that was teaching a different kind of Islam. And guess what? His own campaign at the time was the life of the Muslims in that northern part of Nigeria. It did not reflect the Sharia teachings of Allah or Muhammad. Uthman Danfodio gained popularity because of his style of teaching. Uthman Danfodio, a Fulani man, in order to clear the entire place and install his own idea of Islam. He formed an army. This was the story we read. He formed an army, and the army started liberating people from the hands of a tyrannical kings. And then he formed Sokoto Caliphate in 1801 or 1803 rather. Now, why am I telling you this? In that same space called Nigeria today, there were those who are descendants of Shango, the founder of Oyo Kingdom, the first Alaafin of Oyo, and is rich to the point that there are so many towns in Yoruba land of today, whose first kings were the descendant of the same, you know what I mean? But today, those descendants are not grouping themselves, forming another army of Shango to begin to invade towns, villages for this, because that was their history. They used to have that, right? Until 1780, when he was able to gather all the groups. They declared what they called jihad. And by 1803, Hausa kingdom that welcomed the Fulanis to live in their own bushes, their kingdom fell. Their kings were slaughtered and killed. But guess what? They called it revolution. Uthman Dan Fodio became the leader of the faithfuls. That was his title, Malam, the leader of the faithfuls. But do you know what happened? As beautiful as that story sounded to you, it wasn't actually a revolution or anything. It was an act of terrorism against your hosts using religion. They said the Hausa kings, they were pagans. That means even the Hausa elite that were kind of answering the name of Islam, they were not practicing real Islam. So what did they do? They formed a terrorist group. Fulani formed the first terrorist group in the name of Allah. And what did they do? Like you are witnessing today, they started invading the same communities they've been living for the past 100 years. What did they do? They began going after their kings. Because what happened? Those kingdoms heard about Uthman Dan Fodio and the army he was putting together. They were army of terrorist group. In the name of Allah, that was the group, the name of Allah. Because they were not practicing right Muslim or right Islam. Sufi Islam. So they staged act of terrorism. They then won. They won. They were able to recruit enough young people through his teachings. He wrote so many books. All these books are the teachings these guys believe in. And that is why when you get to Nigeria, you'll be wondering, what kind of Islam do they practice in the north? What is the type of Islam they practice in the south? So they captured as many Hausa men and women as slaves. They dethroned their kings. And he appointed emirs. Then they called him. He said they were living luxurious lives. They were not following the way of Allah. Uthman Dan Fodio was offered that, okay, you should be the first sultan of this emirate, these areas that we have captured now. That is why if you grew up in northern Nigeria and you are seeing the conversation between Fulani and Hausa, a Fulani will be telling you that it was their Uthman Dan Fodio. Uthman Dan Fodio was like a prophet to them. They were not reading Quran. He was writing different Arab, and what do you call it? He called them teachings. He wrote so many books. These were the books they were teaching them, how they should live, who they should see. And in fact, non-Muslims, anyone who is a non-Muslim is an infidel, and they must be killed. This idea exists in Nigeria. Or you know something like what I told you about those who claim to be moderates. Those ones who will automatically turn it into an attack on Islam. This is their history. It is violence. This violence, an average Fulani will tell an Hausa person that a Hausa person would have been a lost soul if not for their Danfodio who came to save them and brought Islam. This is their history. So they wanted to make him the first sultan. He rejected it, but he said they should make his son, Muhammad Bello, the sultan. So you see the caliphate that you are hearing today never existed anywhere in this Sokoto caliphate you are hearing today. Sokoto does not exist until 1803. This was when the jihad, declaration of a holy war on Hausa kingdom. The Hausa kingdom fell. Their kings were captured and killed. You understand? And since then, they created the Sokoto Caliphate. Now, the idea is that it is the jihad that got that for them. It was, then they started moving southward. So, as they were moving, as they were conquering and killing and capturing, until they got to the mountains of the Middlebeltans. It was, in fact, historically, it was during the war between them, these children of the caliphate, and the Middlebeltans of today, the Jokunsu, the Tifisi, the people of that Middlebelt, the Beroms. When they got to the mountains, they dwell so well in the desert, in the Sahel, there and all those places, right? In fact, it was actually advancing north too. You see the Boko Haram you see today, Boko Haram, Fulani terrorists that you are seeing today, that some of their people who are now in power claim what you call is farmers others clashes. That was exactly the kind of army that Uthman Danfodio put together. These were people who were taught and fed every day the hatred towards every other race and every other religion. They were raised in hatred. The people that will tell you today that the reason why you are saying all of this is because you hate Islam. Just ask them, what kind of Islam are you talking about? Are you talking about the ones that allow them to kill people? Or the one that you normally pray to your Allah and then it's between you and your Allah? Which one are you kind of talking about? Right? So this violence, they don't negotiate. So when they got to that middle belt of where is now today middle belt, they held them back. They lost so many men. They died, like, you know what I mean? So they had to retreat. They said it was part of that failure that killed him, Uthman Danfodio. He died miserably somewhere where the injury is sustained. This is history. So that when they tell you Fulani, Hausa, Yoruba, Igbo, all of you are the same thing. You are not. We are not. We are not. And if they tell you to tolerate it, no, you don't tolerate people whose idea. I mean, I'm a Yoruba man. As an Ijebu man too. We were also warriors too. And none of us who are descendants of the Ijebus, the Ajebu and the rest of us, grouping ourselves together to continue the conquerors or whatever of our own forebearers of 200, 400 years ago in 2020, 2023. But they believe that Nigeria and the entire land, everybody occupying that space today, they must either vanish or they must bow for their own doctrine of belief. Some said it is their culture, it's not Islam. That's your business. But you know it. When they get a hold of you, you probably will understand that in Nigeria, there is actually two parts of it. Abi? So historically, they stopped them, and that is why they said, and they keep saying it too, Fulanis will never forget. They will never forget. So over the time, when the British now came, the British stopped the advancement of the jihad in a violent way. So for the time being, when the exploitation was ongoing, the jihad abated. It didn't advance. So at the time, they believed that they went diplomatic, which was what now created the Turkiya. Now, fast forward to after the independence, they started the jihad again. The grooming, the grouping, and the rest of that. That was where people like this. Now, I am pointing this out today because even in the same northern Nigeria of today, where Hausas, either Muslim or Christian, have been slaughtered for one reason or another by this Fulani jihadists, they are the only people who believe that all of us, whether we like it or not, we will bow. Do you understand what I mean? There is no amount of education that you might see some of them have. Do not be deceived. And that is why the advantage they have in Nigeria of today is that they could easily just disarm us. All right? Disarm us, weaken us, and the rest of that, and still get what they want to get. But people know better. So if you are within the Middlebelt part of Nigeria, and you are caught up in what is happening today, and people are trying to gaslight you, here is the point. For those of you who knows that the real agenda against your forebearers, your own ancestors, the ones that killed Uthman Dan Fodio, the ones that stopped his jihad, your forebearers, the war they fought is what you are now fighting now. And as some of you have seen it, you are on your own. It is even worse now. Back then, all of the smaller ethnic nationalities, the bigger, the smaller, everyone, they were able to team together and they held them back. And that is why their caliphate of 1803 did not expand beyond where they are today. But what else did they do? They have started, especially under Bokuwari. When you go from the southern Kaduna, and you start tracing it downward, and then you go back to the Benues, and you go straight to the plateau, and the rest of that, you will see so many places that are already occupied. And people are being stopped to go there and flush them out. In their book, they call those places ungoverned areas. So today, people who are kind of trying to gaslight you, like, you are just trying to hate no. This is their history. And if there's anybody today who is deceived with the other intention, in fact, people like Isa Pandemic, Isa Patantami, became famous for pointing that out. Like, why did it take so long for them to have kind of conquered the plateau and all these areas? What is taking too long? That he was even ready to lead the jihad. These are not, Fulanis are not indigenous people to anywhere. Not even in the Hausa land where they are currently, they have emir, they have sultan. Do you understand? They are not indigenous anywhere in today's Nigeria. So why would the Fulani want to wage war in Plateau states? Islamic jihad. That's what they are waging. Because they believe they are doing it as an expansionist agenda of the Fodio, their forefathers. You, all of you who came from Oyo Empire, you should be fighting war too. Begin to go to villages and communities and keep going on to up to the Niger and take lands like your forebearers did. But no, this is 2023, for goodness sake. How could you go to people's communities, ransack them, kill them, and then you begin to rename the communities? And then the report comes out and say it is farmers' others clashes. It is not about Islam. Who are you deceiving? These guys are doing what they are doing in the name of Islam. Now, you can now say it is their own Islam. Then you shouldn't be defensive. I mean, come on, man. Do you need anyone to now kind of begin to twist words to explain this to you again?
Mu shiga mota ko da kafa mu kai su walwashin dan mana. Mu je garin lantan mu bi garin lantan din mana. Me ake tsoro ne? Me muke fargaba ne a duniya ne? Ba mutuwa bace. Malaman mu wallahi dole su dubi akan wannan al'amari. Committee da ake ba zai mana maganin abin ba. A kawo taimako an ba wa 'yan gudun hijira miliyan 5-10, wannan kaskanci ne. Mu haɗu a garin mana. A shiga mota inda kafa ne daga nan zuwa lantan, wallahi za mu je da kafa. Menene abin da muke yi ne? In ba za su yi ba, malamin da ke karantar da mu ba ma so mu ketare iyakar su ne. Muna respecting din su ne, muna jiran su ne. In ba su da lokaci, wallahi tallahi na amince zan zama komanda. Wallahi tallahi a ba da iko, wallahi zan jagoranci tafiyar, wallahi zan jagoranta a gayyata, wallahi mu mai da kowa gidansa. Duk musulmin da ke Yamini, duk musulmin da ke Yalwan Shandam, duk musulmin da ke Garkawa, na yi alkawarin zan wuce gaba, kowa ya koma gidansa ya shiga. Kowa ya koma gidansa ya shiga, wallahi na yi alkawarin zan wuce gaba. Na yi alkawarin a kashe ni akan addinin Allah, na amince a nan ma a kashe ni akan addinin Allah, na amince. Me muke yi ne a rayuwa? Wannan kaskanci da muke cikin, me za mu je mu ga Allah gobe kiyama a kayansa? Mutane ana ta koro su mu ajiye su. Sahabbai ba haka suka rayu ba. Malaman sunna ku ne malaman mu, ku ne iyayen mu, ku ne jagororin mu. Ba ma so mu ketare iyakar ku, ba ma so mu ketare abin da kuke gaya mana. Kaskancin da muke rayuwa ya ishe mu a rayuwa, ya ishe mu a cikin rayuwar da muke. Ba a mana magana ba aka rusa masallaci a Numan, musulmai suna kuka, makiyin Allah ya ce a rusa, babu wanda ya magana. Mutane sun zo sallar juma'a ana sa wani masallaci gireda a kasar da a garin Numan. Me za mu je mu gaya wa Allah? A sallah kadai Allah yake bukatan mu da shi, azumi kadai Allah yake bukatan mu da shi, azumi kadai Allah yake bukatan.
Why are you crying over people who are like, you want to wage war against people on their land? That guy is originally on record, is from Bauchi. It's a pandemic, is from Bauchi. But the passion that, why is Plateau State, why is Plateau State still having Christians as their governor? Why are they yet to have a Fulani man, a Muslim as you know what I mean? Like, what are the Muslims there doing? There was never a record that, oh, people came together, and they started burning mosques and started killing Muslims and started going after anybody who is no, there's no record. But when you go and attack people, and then they fight back, and you are wondering, how did they manage to fight back? And you are sad that they, you should have led the war. You should have waged a jihad that will clear all of them, so they will no longer exist. I mean, you came there. You came to meet them there. Abba. Because that's exactly what Fodio was all about. When they wrote it in history that Utmandan Fodio liberated the Hausas. Hausas told Hausas who had kingdoms, who were running things, who allowed you, the first settlers, Fulanis, to settle among them. And one of their children, Usmanu, decided to begin to group all the Fulanis he could get. Is that not what is happening today? Are there no local Fulanis in so many parts of Nigeria today that are now collaborating with the murderers, the terrorists? Have we not received all the report of that too? Eh? So you blame the people for fighting back and you want them killed more, and then you can take over their land. I mean, listen to this gentleman.
You usually ask yourself, what happens to these communities after they've been attacked? Usually a particular community is attacked like 3 or 4 times over a 1-year period, and the people in that community feel so unsafe, they move to the neighboring community or to an IDP camp. And you would expect that those communities will remain empty. No, they won't. People come in there and settle there. As I'm speaking with you, go to Moon Council Ward in Kwanda local government area of Benue State. As I'm speaking to you, you have almost 38 communities in Mango local government alone that have been repossessed by people. And these are places where you have some places. You know that Plateau, for instance, used to be a mining site when Nigeria was big on iron mining and all of those ore minings. These people are taking over those strategic places, and they are taking over bodies of water, and they settle there. And so it is not as if they attack and people can move back to their communities. When people try to move back to their communities, the attacks resume and they run away. So people are living in their houses now. And then if you go back to the
So it's a case of attack, sack, occupy.
And replace. And then if you move a bit further to see the modality and in the upcoming census, MPC is not going to be accounting those demolished houses. MPC is not going to be counting them. MPC is going to be instead counting new settlements close to those demolished houses. So there is a serious problem you have on your hands. It's beyond what is being painted by the media. Let's still stay on the cause of the problem. And you find a community who they will tell you they are coming, and they come, droves, in some cases 250 people. And then the community has like 20 or 30 vigilante services against who have pump action rifles, who you know that the effective range of a good pump action, depending on the bullets you're using, is 30 meters. And these guys have 400-meter weapon that they can fire at you from 400 meters away, and they aim you and they get you. Sometimes they have surface-to-air missiles. Sometimes they have weapons that can fire at operative range of 800 meters. Sometimes they come with 50-meter caliber weapons. And the military-grade assault rifles they are coming with is superior to what our Nigerian army has. This is not your regular pastoralists. This is not them. This is a full-fledged terrorist organization. And when you hear the vice president telling people to live in peace, to embrace peace, no, you are embracing deaths. So what you're telling them is to sit in one of the people I interviewed, I can still see their faces, really. I've been to these places, I've seen shallow graves, I've talked to kids, I've seen people who had different kinds of things. The pictures are all over my laptop here. I can show you this after the program. If you see what is really happening, one of the people I talked to, I said, why are you staying in this community? You know that they will come back. He said, life in the IDP camp is death. Life in the community is death. I don't know whether they are coming or not, but I can't stay either ways. So they are waiting to be killed. It's just like dying instrumentally. This is what is really going on. And you are telling them to embrace peace because the government is seeing this as farmer header class. So they would advise you to live peaceably. That's why we are telling the government, begin the process to officially gazette these people. Again, let me take you back to Boko Haram. Nobody goes to any community that is attacked by Boko Haram to tell them, live peaceably with your neighbors, because they've been officially gazetted. And Nigerian military knows what they are dealing with, terrorists. But now when you see them as, two fighting, it becomes an issue of trying to separate the two guys that are fighting. No, two guys are not fighting. One person has an agenda, ideological agenda, political agenda, religious agenda, and they are pursuing it. And then if you ask the communities, what do you hear when they come? They start chanting religious chants before they attack. And in many of the cases, you ask them yourselves, especially when they have time to attack, sometimes they cordon off the security issue, they cordon off the community and start slaughtering with knives. And why are they not killing with the weapons they have? Why are they slaughtering with knives? So there are a lot of issues that you see on display here that you would see that indeed the federal government is doing Plateau people, Benue people, and indeed all of those people. And I hear my elder brother talking about, these are not border communities. Plateau is not a border, Benue, Kaduna. So these they move up and down.
Need I say more? That's an eyewitness account there. Somebody who actually knows it truly. And somebody is going to say, it's not about religion. It is not about Fulani. It is just people, communities clashing from the comfort of your room. You think it's actually clashes. Here, one of their governors once said this. Maybe this can further help you.
The people these elements that are killing people in the name of banditry, do you perhaps have an idea of who these people are? You mentioned that they have different groups, but I know that you've made an overture to some of them, to reach out to them, to in fact grant amnesty to some of them. Who are these people in the real sense of it, Governor?
They are the same people like me who speak the same language like me, who profess the same religious beliefs like me. So what we have here on ground is bandits. They are not aliens. They are people we know. They are people that have been living with us for hundreds of years. The infiltration we have from some West African countries and North African countries are also people of the Fulani extraction. Majority of those involved in this banditry are Fulanis, whether it is palatable or not, but that's the truth. I'm not saying 100% of them are Fulani, but a majority of them are. And these are people who live in the forest, with their main occupation is rearing of cattle. Probably over time, their fortunes dwindle with the climate change, lack of access to education, both is.
So if you sit down there simply because sometimes truth can be too much, can be overwhelming for some of you. If you can sit down there and think the intention of this broadcast is to make the Fulani look bad or make the Muslims feel bad, I may not be able to help you. But again, with what you have seen yourself, it is pointing out people who are committing heinous crimes in the name of their tribe, because it's their belief, in the name of their religion, because it's their belief, and they are killing people with no remorse, because a lot of you are divided whether to condemn them as Fulani, to call them terrorists, or to condemn them as Muslims, to call them terrorists. Your deluded mind somehow wanted to act confused when you should never be confused. I chose to start from their history. And I'm glad that Masaku said, there have been people living with us in our forest and all these places for hundreds of years. It is an ideology. You cannot ask people to tolerate them. You cannot say because of your fraudulent one Nigeria, say you have any compatibility with these people. No, you don't. No, we don't. And that is why, I mean, this guy that said they will lead war and wage war, buy guns and do all of that and kill people in Plateau states, became a minister in Nigeria now. It's a pandemic. He became a minister, communication minister. He was in charge of all the people's phone calls, text messages, emails, all those communication, postal services, everything. He was in charge. And their act of terrorism, the advancement of a Fulani terrorist, they are not others and farmers clashes. Say that loud and clear. Say it now. Type it. Fulani terrorist. Fulani Islamic terrorist. Type it. And do not let anybody gaslight you. Because easily they can tell. Now they wanted to make you feel like, hey, but they are killing Muslims now. Oh, really? So you want to tell us that now, right? So that can just make that what they are doing means that, they are democratic about it. They want people to shut up. They want to shut people. They want to shut you up. They want you to feel guilty for pointing out the danger they are asking you to live with. How do you live with somebody like this?
haƙƙi ne akan malaman musulmai, haƙƙi ne akan 'yan siyasan musulmai, haƙƙi ne akan ma'aikata gwamnatin musulmai, haƙƙi ne akan jami'an tsaro musulmai dole su tsaya su ga an bi kadun jinin ƴan uwanmu da aka zubar, dole su tsaya su ga an bi kadun ƴan uwan jininmu da aka cuta. Jinin alade ya fi shi daraja. Duk da yaran nan ƴan Boko Haram sun yi laifi, amma kisan da aka musu adalci ne. Ka duba yadda ake kwantar da mutane, yadda ka san aladu ana harbe su. Idan sun yi laifi me yasa za a extrajudicial killings? A kai su gaban hukuma mana a hukunta su. Ka kama mutum yana kwance kana kashe shi. In ba musulmi ba ake wannan, mutanen Neja Delta sun yi wannan, sun kashe jami'an tsaro, sun saci mukamai, sun kashe turawa, sun yi kidnapping turawa, amma kun karbe su, kun bude musu ministry, kun sa musu minista, kun ba su albashi, suna daukar salari ba sa aiki. Laifin su bai kai na waɗannan yan Boko Haram ba. Amma me yasa za a yi haka? Me yasa ake selective justice?
That guy became a minister in Nigeria. He was advocating for the Boko Haram. He said the Niger Delta also killed expatriates. They kidnapped the people. They collected ransom. Nigeria gave them ministry. Nigeria gave them minister. Nigeria gave them money. Nigeria gave them this or that. That guy became minister in Nigeria. That guy said Osama bin Laden was a good Muslim. That if Osama bin Laden was alive today, he would gladly follow his footsteps because exactly it is the ideology. So then when you talk about it, they want to gaslight you. They want to make you feel like, why are you? I mean, it's nothing. You should just learn how to live with it. It's not a big deal. Let us just respect, let's leave them alone. Let's just leave who alone. That's why I said, if you sit down there and you still think you have a future, Nigeria has a future, including these barbaric people who have now waged war, another jihad, despite centuries of losses, over 300 years of losses against the people of Middlebelt. They're still waging it and waging it and waging it. You want to live in the same country with them? Okay, good luck. Good luck with that. Pandemic.
ba na so da kake sakatare ban taba shiga mitin din siyasa ba mu abinda muke shiga mitin din sunnar manzon Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam amma ban taba shiga siyasa ba ko ba na sha'awar na shiga talakawa yadda ake addini haka muke so talakawa yadda masu addini suke shiga siyasa ana ba su matsayi haka kuke so a yi addinin haka kuke so a ba masu addini kudin siyasa suna rabawa haka kuke so a rika ba masu addini su daina karantar da kun san mu ci gaba.
It's a pandemic. This guy, if some of you remember this story a while back, and it's this guy, Sunday Achi. They said the young man was sharing a tract on campus, and by the fatwa of this Isa pandemic that later became minister in Nigeria. They heard that fatwa, they got this guy and they killed him. That is the type of Islam and the political Islam that they are bringing, and they want all of us to respect and then live with, or else we are going to be called Islamophobic. Islamophobia. Terrorists are accusing people who don't want to be slaughtered or killed in the name of Allah. The terrorists are now accusing their would-be victims of being Islamophobic. Shomokotonje phobia. Do you know what a phobia is? Phobia